Welcome to Exposed and Broken YouTube channel. We uncover the secrets of love, betrayal, and the choices that change everything.
It started with laughter, not the kind that lightens a room or fills a silence, but something too sharp, too loud, almost forced, from the kitchen. The moment he heard it, he knew something was off. It had that shrill edge women sometimes get when they're pretending to have fun, when they're hiding something. And tonight, that sound came from his wife's mouth. He muted the TV and listened. More laughter followed. A second voice joined in. Vanessa's, unmistakable. He didn't even need to see her to picture the way she'd be clutching her wine glass, like it was her only lifeline, laughing, just a little too hard, just a little too long. His wife's voice cut through next. Not quite laughter now. Nervous. Then footsteps. Fast. Urgent. The door pushed open before he could stand. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. He blinked. Sure." She shut the door behind her like she was locking out a fire. Her cheeks were flushed. But her eyes weren't wild from wine. They were tense. Hard. "It's Vanessa," she said. She just told everyone she's been having an affair." "What?" "Yeah, with her boss, for nearly a year." He sat up. "Are you serious?" She just dropped it like it was no big deal, smiling, laughing. "She's drunk, sure, but not that drunk. She knew exactly what she was doing." He exhaled slowly. "Jesus. She even showed us pictures." "What kind of pictures?" Her jaw clenched. "The kind I wish I could unsee." He swallowed. "So, what now?" She sat down, burying her face in her hands. "I don't know. I honestly don't know." Earlier that night, the party had started normally. The girls were in the kitchen, sipping wine, nibbling brie off cracked white plates. Laughter came easy at first, the way it always did when the husbands stayed out of the way. Vanessa was the last to arrive. She swept in wearing a black velvet dress that hugged every inch like it had been made for sin. Hair curled, lipstick the color of ripe cherries. She made an entrance. She always made an entrance. "I brought the expensive stuff," she said, holding up a bottle of wine none of them could afford regularly. The others cooed, hugged, offered her a glass. Vanessa didn't bother with small talk. She was already 3 sips in before she kicked off her heels. They talked about everything but themselves at first. Vacations, book clubs, kids' schools, someone's new landscaping, safe topics. But safe doesn't last with wine and old friends. It started with Jenna saying her husband hadn't touched her in 2 months. Claire sighed and said, "Try 2 years." Laughter again, but it was hollow this time, resigned. And then Vanessa said it. "Well, mine isn't my husband." The room fell silent. Jenna furrowed her brow. "What?" Vanessa grinned. "You heard me." "Vanessa," Claire warned. "I'm not ashamed," she said, leaning back. "I mean, I should be, probably, but I'm not. He makes me feel alive, like I'm 25 again." Rachel choked on her drink. "Are you talking about your boss?" Vanessa winked. Guilty. Her smile didn't falter. She told them everything, how it started at a business trip, how he looked at her differently than Eric ever did. She talked about hotel rooms, office desks, even his car once. She bragged. She radiated thrill. No guilt, no shame. Then she pulled out her phone. "This one's my favorite," she said, showing the screen to Claire, who gasped and turned away. "Oops, too much? You think this is funny?" Rachel asked. "I think it's true," Vanessa said, sipping her wine. "And I think a lot of women are lying if they say they've never thought about it." "Thinking and doing are different, are they?" Vanessa asked, raising a brow. "Are they really?" And then she looked directly at his wife. Just for a second. Back in the den, he ran a hand through his hair. "So she's not denying it?" "No, she's proud of it." "Jesus." She looked at him. "What would you do? If I were Eric?" She nodded. "I don't know. Lose my mind? Would you leave me?" He blinked. "What? If I ever did something like that, would you leave me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "I don't want to think about that," he said. "But you would." He hesitated. "Yeah, I think I would." She nodded slowly. Good. But there was something in her voice. Something unreadable. 2 days later, he found her crying in the bathroom. It was after midnight. He was brushing his teeth when he heard the soft hitch of breath from behind the closed door. When he knocked, she said, "I'm fine." She wasn't. When she came out 10 minutes later, her face was clean, but her eyes were swollen. "You okay?" he asked. "Just tired," she whispered. "Everything feels so heavy lately." He pulled her close, held her, felt the tension in her shoulders. She didn't lean in. She didn't pull away either. Later that week, she left her phone on the kitchen counter, unlocked. He didn't mean to snoop, but a name caught his eye. The girls, no V. A group chat. Rachel. I still can't believe she said all that. Claire, and the way she looked at us. Jenna. I think she wanted to be caught. Or what, Jenna? Or she wanted to drag someone else down with her. That message stayed with him. What if Vanessa wasn't just bragging? What if she was warning someone? Or threatening? He closed the phone. Later, in bed, he asked his wife, "Do you think she told you all that on purpose?" She didn't answer immediately. "I don't know. I mean, did she ever hint that someone else might be doing the same?" Silence again. "I think she's unraveling," she finally said. "People do weird things when they're close to the edge." "So, are we cutting her off?" She nodded. "I already did. To be continued." I. The next weekend, they saw Eric at the farmer's market. He waved, oblivious, smiling like a man in love. A man with no idea. She waved back, and her hand shook. He noticed it, didn't say anything. But when they got back in the car, he asked, "Are you okay?" "I feel like I'm part of a secret I don't want," she whispered. "Like it stuck to me." He nodded, but he wasn't sure she was talking about Vanessa anymore. 2 weeks later, a new message popped up on her iPad while she was in the shower. From a name he didn't recognize. T. "I miss your laugh, even the fake one." His blood froze. He stared at the screen until it dimmed. When she came out, towel around her, humming softly, he asked, "Who's T?" She froze, just for a second, then smiled. "Old coworker, from my last job." "Close?" She shrugged. "Not really." She dried her hair. He watched her closely, but she didn't falter again. Later that night, he couldn't sleep. His mind kept running circles. The laugh, the message, the look Vanessa gave his wife that night, the silence after the question, "Would you leave me?" He opened his phone, typed one line into the search bar. "How do you know if your partner is hiding something?" The answers were all over the place. None felt right. So he opened a blank note instead and wrote one word: maybe. The fallout began quietly, a strange sort of silence that hummed just below the surface, like the faint ringing in your ears after an explosion. No one said anything outright, not at first. But the group chat my wife and her friends had spun up the night of the party now buzzed with passive aggression, side eyes at brunch, and invitations somehow forgotten. I watched it all unfold with the detached curiosity of a man observing a slow-motion train wreck. Except I wasn't just watching, I was waiting. I had already typed the message. 3 times, actually. Each version of it got shorter, meaner, more surgical. I'd composed it in the dark, my phone screen the only light in the room, illuminating the sharpened edge of my moral outrage. But I hadn't sent it yet. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. It started on a rainy Thursday morning. My wife and I were in the kitchen. She was prepping breakfast, and I was nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, scrolling through the latest headlines when she froze mid-sentence. "Wait." I looked up. She was holding her phone, her face pale. "What?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the screen, eyes darting back and forth, as if trying to make sense of what she was reading. Finally, she whispered, "He knows." That got my attention. "Who knows what?" "Her husband," she said, locking eyes with me. "He knows about the affair." I sat up straighter. "How?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but listen to this." She handed me the phone. It was a screenshot, forwarded to the group chat. A message from the husband to the entire friend group, including his wife. To everyone who sat in my home and smiled at me while knowing my wife was sleeping with another man. Congratulations. I hope whatever entertainment you got from watching my marriage collapse from the inside out was worth it. To my wife, I hope he was worth it. You're going to need him now. Silence. I looked at my wife. Did you say anything? She looked genuinely hurt. Of course not. I didn't even talk to her after the party. None of us did. I raised an eyebrow. But he didn't figure it out on his own. That man barely knows how to work his phone. I don't know, she snapped, defensive. Maybe he checked her texts. Maybe someone else told him. She didn't say it, but we both thought the same thing. Maybe I had, but I hadn't. Not yet. The room was suddenly charged. My heart pounded in my chest, not with fear, but with something closer to adrenaline. A sense of finality. The bullet had been fired. Now it was just a question of where it would land. Then came the next twist, one I never could have anticipated. That night, I got a message. Not a text, not a DM. A printed letter, hand-delivered. No return address. It was slipped under our front door. The handwriting was jagged, rushed, desperate. I know it was you. I don't know how you found out, but you told him. You wanted to destroy me. Congratulations, you won. My life is over. I hope you're proud of yourself. No name, but I didn't need one. It was her, and suddenly it wasn't just messy anymore. It was personal. The next 48 hours were a blur. Her husband moved out. She went into hiding, ghosting the group chat, blocking numbers, calling out of work. My wife was a mess of confusion and guilt, torn between shock and reluctant satisfaction. She never liked what her friend had done, but she never wanted this. No one did. Except, maybe I did. A little. But it didn't matter. Because now I was the villain. 2 days after the letter, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, expecting a package, but instead found her standing there, soaked from the rain. No makeup. Her eyes swollen. "Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated. Probably not a good idea. She took a step forward anyway. "Please." I looked over my shoulder. My wife was out running errands. I sighed and stepped aside. She walked in like a ghost, dripping onto the hardwood, hands shaking. She didn't sit. "I didn't tell him," I said flatly. "If that's what you came for." She laughed bitterly. "I don't believe you." "Believe what you want, but I didn't." She turned to me then. Her eyes narrowed. "Then who?" I shrugged. Maybe he finally saw what everyone else has. "Don't patronize me." "You're right," I said, crossing my arms. "You don't deserve that. You deserve worse." That stopped her. Her face fell. "You really hate me that much?" I stared at her. This woman, beautiful, yes. Charming, yes. But also spoiled. Selfish. Utterly incapable of seeing herself as the problem. "Yes," I said. And then she did something I didn't expect. She cried. Not silent tears. Not graceful weeping. She broke. "I didn't want any of this," she sobbed. He never saw me anymore. I felt like a ghost in my own house. And then my boss started noticing me. And for once I felt alive again. And I didn't want to ruin everything. I just lied to everyone and cheated for a year. I finished coldly. "You wanted to have both. That's not feeling alive. That's just cowardice." She glared at me. "You're not perfect either. I never claimed to be. You think you're better than me. I am better than you." And then she did the second thing I didn't expect. She stepped forward and kissed me, hard. I pushed her back, instantly, stumbling. "What the hell?" Her eyes were wild, frantic. "You hate me, but you see me. You always have." My blood turned to ice. "Get the hell out." But she wasn't done. She stepped forward again, breath shaky. "You think I don't know why you really hate me? You want to destroy me because deep down you want me. And that scares the hell out of you." I stared at her, stunned. "You think I don't see it?" she continued. "Every time we were in the same room, every look, Every little jab. You couldn't stand me because you couldn't have me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. And that silence said everything. She smiled through her tears. You're not going to tell your wife I was here, are you? Then she turned and walked out. And just like that, the real game began. Troy didn't sleep much that night, even though he had finally hit send on the anonymous message, laying out every vile detail of the affair to Matt, the betrayed husband. Sleep eluded him. His mind kept replaying the look on his wife's face when he told her about what he'd done. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't stormed out, but her silence was deafening. When morning came, the house was too quiet. Erin wasn't in bed. She wasn't in the kitchen. She wasn't anywhere. Then he heard the back door slide shut. She was sitting on the porch swing, staring blankly into the garden, her coffee long gone cold on the side table. You didn't sleep, he said quietly, stepping out. No, she said. Her voice was distant. Neither did you, I'm guessing. He sat down across from her. I don't regret it. I didn't say you should. But you're angry. I'm not angry, Troy, she replied. I'm exhausted. He ran a hand down his face. This isn't about us. It's about her. About the crap she's been doing and how smug she's been about it. I know, okay? I know what she did was wrong, but now there's going to be fallout. Not just for her, for everyone. Do you even know what you've started? He didn't respond, because deep down he didn't know. He thought it would be as simple as a reckoning. The guy finds out, the woman panics. Maybe divorce, maybe chaos. But the truth would be out, and that would be the end of it. But that's not what happened. 48 hours later, the group chat, minus Sasha, was in flames. Apparently, Matt had confronted Sasha the morning after receiving the anonymous message. It wasn't some screaming match. He hadn't even brought it up in a rage. He had printed the message and laid it on the kitchen counter next to her phone. I want to see it, he'd said. Show me what's on your phone. Sasha froze. And like the coward everyone secretly knew she was, she ran. She left, took the car, left Matt at home with the kids, and drove off to her sister's house, claiming Matt had become controlling and paranoid. And then, to everyone's disbelief, she spun the narrative so hard that the story she started telling was that Matt was abusive and unhinged, and the message? A fake, a trap, a made-up lie from someone trying to sabotage her marriage. Typical Sasha, Erin had muttered in disgust. But Matt wasn't taking it lying down. He'd hired a private investigator that very day, dug through the phone backups, checked their shared iCloud. The guy had receipts now, literally and digitally. Hotel bookings, emails, nude photos from her boss's private Gmail, Venmo notes that were laughably incriminating. Lunch, pepper paste, was the least of it. And then, Matt did what no one expected. He went public. The post that changed everything. It was posted late Friday night. A single Facebook post. Public. Visible to all of their mutual friends, family, even coworkers. I wasn't going to post anything. I was going to handle this quietly. But seeing how my wife has chosen to lie, manipulate, and smear me for simply asking for the truth, here it is. For over a year, my wife Sasha has been having an affair with her married boss. I received an anonymous tip. And though I initially didn't believe it, the evidence was overwhelming. I won't go into every detail here, but suffice to say the betrayal is complete, the deception deep, and the disrespect absolute. To those who thought we had a happy marriage, so did I. To the person who tipped me off, thank you. You saved me years of my life. I'm filing for divorce next week. The comments exploded. It was like a grenade had gone off in the center of their social circle. People took sides. Some offered support. Others whispered behind the scenes. But the overwhelming reaction, shock, disgust, vindication. Sasha had underestimated just how little goodwill she actually had. One like for Erin, Erin's anger boils over. He named her publicly, Erin muttered that night, staring at her phone. And the boss, Jesus Christ, Troy, he named everyone. Troy sipped his whiskey. Good. They deserve it. Do they? She shot back. Does his wife? The kids? Troy stiffened. You're telling me this is my fault now? No. I'm telling you that you set fire to something, and now you're acting shocked there's smoke. I'm not shocked. I'm satisfied. Then I hope you're real satisfied when this circles back. Circles back how? She hesitated. You don't think Sasha's gonna figure it out? Troy shrugged. She'd have to be a genius to trace it to me. I was careful. Erin didn't look convinced. She knows her friends talked. She'll go through each one, eliminate people. Eventually, she might guess. Especially since I'm the one you vent to. The counterattack. Sunday morning, the phone rang. Not a call. A video. It was Erin's phone. Sasha was calling her. FaceTime. Erin didn't answer, but 30 seconds later, a text came through. I know it was Troy. Don't think I don't see through this bullshit. You think I won't burn it all down if I have to? Erin's face went pale. Troy took the phone, reread the message, then smiled grimly. Let her try. But the threat wasn't idle. Sasha did start burning things down. By Sunday afternoon, Matt had messaged Erin directly, asking her about a confession Sasha said she made at the party. Asking if Erin had told anyone. Asking if she'd mentioned names. Asking if she had recordings. Erin, caught off guard, froze. It was happening. The lie, the web, the damage, was folding in on itself. And just when Troy thought it couldn't escalate further, Sasha went nuclear. The HR bombshell. Monday morning, an email dropped into Matt's company HR inbox from Sasha, claiming she was a victim of workplace coercion and grooming by her boss. That she'd been emotionally manipulated into an affair. That she feared retaliation. That she needed protection. And that the company had a toxic, male-dominated culture that enabled it. The boss, who had a wife, 3 kids, and a VP position, was instantly placed on leave. Matt's post, deleted within hours. He'd been advised by his own lawyer that going public might complicate the divorce proceedings. Suddenly, Sasha had shifted the entire narrative. She wasn't a cheating wife anymore. She was a survivor. And people believed her. Or at least enough people didn't want to touch the story with a 10-foot pole. Backlash begins. By Wednesday, Erin received a call from another woman in the friend group, Heather. Hey, she said cautiously. Have you seen Sasha's story? What story? Erin asked, confused. Heather hesitated. She posted about abuse. She's telling people that she confided in you. That you knew. That you said Troy could be volatile. Erin nearly dropped the phone. She what? She's framing it like you were scared of how Troy would react to things. That you implied he might have been the one who sent the anonymous message. Erin went dead quiet. Troy, Heather asked, are you there? I need to go. She hung up. The fallout at home. What the hell is happening? Troy asked when Erin stormed into the room, her face red with fury. She's turning it around. She's saying you sent the message because you're dangerous. That I was afraid of you. That I told her that. Troy laughed bitterly. She's desperate. She's also smart, Troy. This isn't some dumb drunk gossip session anymore. She's playing chess, and we just lost the board. Troy clenched his jaw. So what now? We do nothing? Let her smear me? Erin looked at him, suddenly vulnerable. I don't know. There was a long silence. Then she added, I don't regret telling you what she did. But maybe I shouldn't have said anything at all. Troy didn't know which part stung more, her doubt, or the way her voice cracked when she said it. Thursday night, a letter arrived in their mailbox, unmarked, handwritten. Erin opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single photo, a photo taken at the party where Sasha drunkenly confessed everything. It was a still shot from someone's phone. In the background, Erin, laughing. In the foreground, Troy, standing near the kitchen door, phone in hand, angled upward, recording. Below the photo, written in thick red ink, if I go down, you go down too. Troy stared at it, stunned. He didn't remember anyone taking a photo, but there it was. He was in the background of a confession, possibly recorded, possibly leaked. And suddenly, he was the suspect. Troy stared at the blinking cursor on his work laptop, but nothing registered. His mind was a war zone. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, trembling slightly from the tremor that hadn't left him since that morning. He hadn't slept. Not really. He'd paced most of the night. When he did close his eyes, all he could see were the photos. Those goddamn photos. Sasha, her boss, the hotel suite, the timestamp. His stomach turned again, bile rising at the edges of his throat. He hadn't confronted her. Not yet. He couldn't. Not until he had everything. He'd copied every file from her phone, which she'd left unlocked and unguarded on the kitchen counter, like she was untouchable. He pulled every message, every photo, every voice note. There were even screenshots of Google Maps directions to a condo in the city. A second location, a second life, and still, something about all of this didn't add up. She'd been too careless. Across town, Sasha stood at her kitchen window, her coffee untouched. Her phone had been buzzing all morning, group chat silence broken by the occasional neutral text. Busy today? Or, you coming this weekend? A light, flat, measured. She knew what they were doing. They'd seen the photos. Aaron had texted her privately the night before. Sasha, WTF were you thinking, showing those pics? No emojis, no softening, just judgment. She stared at that message now, her chest tight. Aaron had always been her safe place. Reckless, confident, magnetic Aaron, who drank whiskey like water, and never judged her for the mess. But even she sounded distant now. She locked her phone, suppressing the growing panic in her chest, and then a notification buzzed through. A name she hadn't seen in months. Jason, work. We need to talk urgently. Call me. Her blood went cold. Jason, her boss, the married man, the one she'd been sleeping with for nearly a year. What did he know? That night, Troy waited in the dark. Sasha walked in, shopping bags in hand, face tight, but trying to fake casual. Hey babe, she chirped. Ran errands, grabbed tie. Want green curry or... Who is Jason? He asked, voice cold and low. She stopped. He watched the color drain from her face, like a slow leak. Her fingers gripped the bag handles so tight, the plastic crackled. What? Don't play dumb, you heard me. Troy. He stood slowly, tossing his phone on the coffee table. The screen still glowed with a paused image. Her and Jason, pressed against a hotel window. Her hands in his hair, his mouth on her neck. That's who. That's Jason. For a moment, she said nothing. Then came the most infuriating thing of all, tears. Instantly, like a reflex. I didn't, Troy, it wasn't. Please, just let me explain. Oh, now you want to talk. His voice cracked with fury. Now that I've seen everything, she reached for him. He stepped back. How long? He asked. How long? Her mouth opened, closed. Almost a year, she whispered. But it's over. It's been over. Bullshit. He turned away, fury shaking him down to his bones. And then she said it. I was going to tell you. He spun around, incredulous. When, Sasha? After your next performance review? After the Christmas party? It wasn't just about him, she snapped, emotion overtaking panic now. It was about me. I was falling apart. You didn't even see me anymore. He laughed bitterly. Right, the neglected wife monologue. I must have missed that between packing your lunch and fixing the goddamn sink. And then came the silence. Thick, tangled, toxic. He stormed upstairs. She stayed frozen. The next day, Aaron got the message from him. Meet me, just you, today, 5 p.m., park by the lake. It was the first time Troy had ever messaged her directly, and it terrified her. When she arrived, he was already there. Hoodie up, sunglasses on, standing by the railing like a ghost. Why me? She asked, arms crossed. I know it was you, he said simply. Aaron blinked. What? I know you sent me that message. The anonymous tip, the burner. She flinched. Silence. He chuckled. Relax. I'm not mad. She looked at him then. Really looked. Troy wasn't broken. He wasn't even angry. He looked alive. She deserves to be destroyed, he said, eyes sharp. And I know you agree. Aaron didn't speak for a moment. Then, you're wrong. I didn't send you that message. Troy frowned. Don't bullshit me. I'm not. He stared at her. And for the first time since this mess began, a new emotion crept in. Confusion. If you didn't send it, then who the hell did? 2 days later, Sasha received a voicemail. Sasha, it's Jason. Listen, I don't know what you told your friends, but things are spiraling. My wife went through my phone. She found everything. I don't know if she hired someone or if someone tipped her off, but we're fucked. I'm telling you this once. Delete everything. Every message, every file, every image. If HR gets wind of this, we both lose everything. Do not contact me. The line went dead. She stared at her phone, stunned. It wasn't Troy. It wasn't Aaron. It wasn't even the wives. Someone else had sent that tip. Someone who'd known both of them were involved. Her chest tightened. Her eyes drifted to the hallway, where her laptop sat on the floor, unlocked, connected to her email, and her husband had a tech background. At that exact moment, Troy sat in the basement, reviewing old security camera backups. He'd installed the system a year ago when their neighbor got robbed. One file caught his eye. A time-stamped clip from 2 weeks ago. Their bedroom. In it, Sasha's laptop screen glowed faintly. She sat beside it, talking softly on speakerphone. Jason's voice came through clearly. But that wasn't what made Troy's skin crawl. It was the second voice, a female voice, laughing. "You're seriously gonna let her keep that pic?" the voice said, giggling. "That angle made your stomach look so bloated." Sasha laughed. "Shut up. You were the one who told me to keep it." "Yeah, because I thought it'd be funny if your husband saw it. He's so clueless." Troy paused the video. That voice, that laugh, he replayed it again and again. It wasn't Aaron, it was Marissa, their other friend, his wife's oldest friend from college, the one who always stayed above the drama, the one who'd gone oddly quiet lately. He grabbed his phone, opened Sasha's photo app, searched Marissa, dozens of selfies, brunches, poolside vacations, and one folder labeled secure, password protected. But Troy was already typing in Marissa's birthday. Access granted. Inside were videos of Sasha, of Jason, and of Marissa, filming. Marissa, the quiet, judgmental one, had known about the affair all along. She encouraged it. She filmed it. She kept copies. And she was the one who sent the anonymous tip. Not to protect Troy, but to destroy Sasha. Tony paced in his kitchen, the coffee gone cold in his untouched mug. The message had arrived at 3:14 a.m. A burner email, sent through a privacy-forward site, filled with screenshots, dates, locations. And the truth he never asked for. It wasn't just that Vanessa was cheating. It was the depth of it, the deception layered like sediment in the cracks of their life. Meetings labeled board review. Nights she claimed to be at her sister's. The sudden attention to her appearance before late hours at work. It was all there, chronologically documented and undeniable. The sender hadn't left a name, just a final line. Check her phone, gallery hidden album, start July last year. He hadn't opened it yet. Some part of him, whatever instinct protected the weak, was trying to delay the inevitable. But Tony wasn't weak. He had been willfully blind, maybe. Too trusting. Too lazy to question a life that seemed on the surface, comfortably ordinary. Now, the foundation had been yanked out, and he had a choice. Spiral, or burn it all down. He walked upstairs like a soldier marching to war. Vanessa's phone sat on her nightstand, the screen casting soft white light from the charging indicator. She was still asleep, face down, hair messy, wearing his college t-shirt. He picked up the phone. She had never locked it. Trust, she once said, was their strength. Gallery, albums, hidden. The folder wasn't empty. There were photos, explicit, yes, but also emotional. Vanessa in the passenger seat of a luxury car, laughing. Vanessa on a hotel balcony, in a bathrobe, champagne in hand. Vanessa and a man older, graying. Smug, naked together, her head resting on his chest, like they were in love. His name was all over the metadata. Richard, CEO, married, 3 kids. Tony stared at the phone until the screen dimmed to black. He didn't cry, not yet. Rage was quieter than people expected. It didn't always look like yelling or breaking plates. Sometimes it looked like a man sitting perfectly still, feeling the world shift under his feet. When Vanessa finally stirred, the sun was rising. "Morning," she murmured, still drowsy. Tony was already dressed, sitting at the edge of the bed. She stretched. "You're up early." He didn't answer. Vanessa rubbed her eyes. "Everything okay?" He turned to her with a look she hadn't seen before. Some blend of betrayal, heartbreak, and clinical distance. "Tell me about Richard." Her blood went cold. "What?" "Richard, your boss, CEO, married, 3 kids, been fucking him for almost a year now, right?" Vanessa sat up, panic instantly overtaking her face. "Tony." He tossed her phone to her lap. "Gallery, hidden album, if you forgot." She opened her mouth to lie, but the look in his eyes silenced her. So she sat there, caught, bare in every sense of the word. "You went through my phone," she said softly. "You left me no choice." She tried to speak, stalked, then started again. It wasn't supposed to." "To what? Get caught?" "No, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was unhappy. You and I haven't really been." "Cut the script." Tony snapped. "I've seen this movie before. Just spare me the cliches." She shrank into herself, lips trembling. "Please, don't do this now." "No, now is exactly the time." She grabbed the sheets, as if to shield herself from the shame. "I'm sorry." Tony stood. "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught." Word spread through their social circle faster than Tony anticipated. Not because he said anything, but because secrets never stayed secrets, especially in tightly wound suburban neighborhoods full of glass wine nights and barely veiled resentment. By Thursday, 3 couples had quietly unfollowed Vanessa on Instagram. By Saturday, her best friend, Vanessa, had ghosted her entirely. And by the following week, the first message arrived from a name Tony didn't recognize. "You don't know me, but I work at the same firm as Richard. You deserve to know the full story. Call me, 555-861-4420. Tony almost deleted it. But curiosity won. He called. The voice on the other end was nervous, female, young. "My name is Jenna. I was Richard's assistant until 3 months ago." He waited. "I saw your name in some of the internal emails, from Vanessa. There's more, a lot more. I think you need to know, Vanessa wasn't the only one." They met in a public cafe. Jenna wore sunglasses, a hoodie, and looked like she'd aged 5 years and 3 months. "It's not just your wife," she said, hands shaking around her latte. "Richard's been doing this for years, using his position to manipulate younger employees into affairs. Promotions for silence, gifts for compliance." Tony's expression darkened. And Vanessa? She was different. She knew he was married, knew everything, and she leaned into it. It wasn't coercion, not from what I saw. She liked the power. He felt nauseated. "There's a folder," Jenna said, pulling out a thumb drive. "HR buried it, but I made a copy before I quit. Texts, photos, emails, his NDA with Vanessa, even. She signed it." Tony blinked. "NDA? Non-disclosure agreement. Basically promising she'd never say anything. There's also something else. You're not going to like it." She slid a printed copy of an email across the table. It was dated 6 weeks ago. "What?" "From Vanessa Williams to richard.g@horizonfirm.com. Subject, update. Hey love, Tony's still completely clueless. I've been pushing the idea of maybe trying for a baby again just to keep things calm. You said Q3 would be the time to revisit the plan. I'm trusting you. You promised me this wasn't just sex. You said we'd have something real. I'm already in too deep to walk away now. Don't leave me hanging. XO." Tony stared at the paper. Cold fury gripped his chest. A baby. She was going to trap him with a baby while planning a future with another man? The waitress passed by, asking if he wanted a refill. He shook his head, numb. Jenna leaned forward. "He'll throw her under the bus the second it threatens him. I've seen it before. But if you want to make noise, use this." He took the drive. His fingers shook. "What do you want out of this?" he asked. Jenna looked away. Closure. That night, Tony didn't go home. He booked a room at a cheap extended stay and opened the folder Jenna had given him. Hours passed as he pieced together just how long he'd been made the fool. Worse still, he realized just how calculated it all was. Vanessa wasn't just unhappy and impulsive. She had been plotting her escape route while painting him as clueless backup. Even her friends had distanced themselves. Vanessa had sent him a message earlier that night. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know the full extent. I thought it was just a fling. I had no idea she was trying to get pregnant. That's evil. He wanted to scream. Instead, he opened a blank document and began typing. Not to Vanessa, not yet. To Richard's wife. The next morning, Tony drove to Richard's gated neighborhood. The kind with security cameras, manicured hedges, and overpriced misery. He didn't get out of the car. He just sat there, envelope in hand, watching as a woman in a bathrobe stepped onto the porch to grab the morning paper. She looked happy, blissfully unaware. He stepped out, walked over, and handed her the envelope. For you. She looked confused. Sorry, do I know? No, Tony said. But your husband does. The envelope contained everything. Printouts of the photos, the emails, the NDA, and a note Tony had typed in cold, brutal clarity. You deserve to know. I'm not asking for revenge, but you should have the truth. That's Tony Williams. She stood there frozen, fingers trembling as she opened it. Tony didn't wait for her reaction. He just turned around, walked back to his car, and drove away. Behind him, the suburban illusion began to crack. That evening, Vanessa came home to a near-empty house. Tony's things were gone. His clothes, laptop, books, even the framed photo from their wedding shelf. Only a note remained on the kitchen counter, in Tony's neat handwriting. I know everything. I've seen it all. You broke more than trust. You built a second life while pretending to save ours. Don't call. Don't text. Don't try to find me. Whatever comes next, you brought it on yourself. Tony. Vanessa dropped into the kitchen chair like her legs had betrayed her. The silence screamed louder than any argument could. She called him 23 times that night. He didn't pick up once. Meanwhile, Richard's world began to implode. His wife, Marla, hired a private investigator the moment she received Tony's file. By the end of the week, Richard had been served divorce papers. His firm was in PR lockdown, and murmurs of an internal ethics inquiry spread like wildfire through Horizon Capital. 3 other women came forward. Jenna was the first to go public, using her TikTok account to post a 3-minute video titled, "He called me his protege, but I was just another secret." It went viral, and in the middle of it all, Vanessa, once confident, sharp, and in control, was losing everything. 1 week later, a knock on Tony's hotel door. He opened it to find Marla. She looked composed, radiant even, but her eyes were ice. "I wanted to say thank you," she said, handing him a manila envelope, "and offer you something in return." Inside was a full copy of the PI's report. More photos, messages, financial trails showing Richard's hush money payments and legal manipulations. Tony blinked. "Why me?" Marla gave him a small smile. "Because you didn't come to me for revenge. You came to tell the truth. That's rare. I wanted you to have the full picture." She paused at the door. "For what it's worth, you deserved better. We both did." 2 months later, Tony moved into a new apartment, smaller, simpler, but peaceful. He started therapy, picked up running again, made new friends, stopped checking Vanessa's socials. She'd tried again. Emails, apologies, even sending one message titled, "I was broken and didn't know how to ask for help." He never replied. The final twist came not from her, but from his own mother. Over lunch one quiet Sunday, she said, "There's something I've been meaning to tell you. About your father." Tony looked up, fork midair. "What about him?" She hesitated, then took a long sip of her tea. "He wasn't just abusive. He had another family. I found out after he died. You have a half-sister. She lives in Toronto." The silence returned. Not cruel this time, just heavy. Tony sat back, heart hammering. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because you deserve the truth. No more lies in this family." He laughed once, bitter. "Seems like truth is a late guest in all our lives." She reached across the table. "But it's here now." That night, Tony wrote a letter. Not to Vanessa, not to Richard, not even to his half-sister. To himself. "Dear Tony, you survived. You didn't break. You didn't become them. The pain was real. The betrayal nearly destroyed you. But you're still standing. And that means something. Maybe it means everything." He folded the paper, placed it in a drawer, and looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, people were lying, cheating, destroying lives under the cover of love. But somewhere else, someone was healing. And maybe, just maybe, he'd be one of them. Tony never intended to send the letter. It was therapy. A personal ritual. Write it, fold it, forget it. But 3 days later, he found himself reopening the drawer, smoothing the page, and rereading every word. There was something raw and unfiltered in it, like a voice from a version of himself he didn't know existed. A man halfway between survival and rediscovery. His therapist had once told him, "Closure isn't about getting answers from other people. It's about answering yourself." Still, there were questions, and now one of them wore a face he'd never seen. Toronto, the city buzzed with polite chaos, streetcars, glass towers, cold blue skies, and the crisp chill of early spring. Tony arrived with nothing but a weekend bag, a stack of papers, and a photo of her. Claire, his half-sister, late 20s, messy blonde curls, a shy smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The private investigator had found her quietly. No drama, no scandal. She was the daughter of Tony's father from a separate relationship, born during the last years of his mother's crumbling marriage. Tony had stared at the report for days before making contact. He didn't even know what he wanted, just not silence anymore. They agreed to meet at a small coffee shop on Queen Street. When he arrived, she was already seated, nervous hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. One leg bouncing under the table. She spotted him instantly. Her eyes widened. "You're taller than I expected." Tony chuckled, unsure what to do with his hands. "And you're real." She smiled awkwardly. "Yeah, apparently." He sat across from her. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable, just tentative, like two people meeting in the aftermath of a storm neither of them caused. Claire cleared her throat. "So, I guess we're siblings." "Half," Tony said. She raised an eyebrow. "Still counts." He nodded. "Yeah, still counts." Over the next hour, they peeled back layers. Claire had grown up an only child. Her mother was a school teacher, gentle and composed, who had told her almost nothing about the man she used to love. Only that he died when Claire was 23, and that he was complicated. "I always felt like something was missing," Claire said, stirring her tea. "But I assumed it was just normal sadness. Now I know I had a brother out there, a whole other life I never knew." Tony exhaled. "He wasn't a good man, just so you know." Claire looked down. "I had a feeling." Mom didn't say much, but it was in her eyes. They were quiet for a moment. Then she leaned in. "Do you hate him?" Tony paused. "I used to," he said. "Now I think I just feel sorry for the kid I was, for believing he'd ever choose to be better." Claire nodded, eyes glassy. "Same." They spent the afternoon walking through the distillery district, sharing childhood stories like puzzle pieces from mismatched boxes. Claire had always wanted a sibling. Tony had always wanted someone to save him. Neither of them got what they wished for. But maybe this was the start of something else. That night, Tony stayed at a small hotel near downtown. He couldn't sleep. The city hummed outside. Streetlights painted streaks of gold across the ceiling. He opened his laptop and reread one of Vanessa's final emails. "I miss who we were. I wish I could go back and change everything." But she never had. Not once. Not until she was caught. He closed the tab. No more ghosts. The next morning, Claire invited him to brunch. The table was loud and casual. Blueberry pancakes, too many coffee refills, and a playlist of 90s R&B in the background. "I know this is weird," she said, "but I don't want this to be just a one-time thing." Tony smiled. "Me neither." She looked relieved. "I think we're both owed a little family, right?" He nodded. For the first time in months, Tony felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Not just peace, hope. Later, at the train station, as he prepared to return home, Claire hugged him tightly. "Hey," she said, "don't disappear, okay?" Tony smiled against her shoulder. "Only if you don't." They pulled apart, and she pressed something into his hand. A tiny, silver keychain. Shaped like a compass. "So you don't get lost again," she said, winking. He held it tightly long after the train pulled away. Back home. The air was warmer now, winter fading. Tony returned to his apartment with a clearer mind and fewer weights pressing on his chest. He ignored the 2 missed calls from Vanessa, deleted the email from Richard, some desperate mix of apology and denial. But what caught him off guard was a small package waiting on his doorstep. No return address. Inside, a flash drive, a folded note. If you still want justice, this is how you get it. But just know, it won't fix you. Nothing ever does. He plugged it into his laptop. Video files, office recordings, incriminating conversations between Richard and other women, clearly violating company policies. Who sent it? Claire, one of the women who came forward. He'd never know. But what he did know was this. He had a choice. Burn Richard's empire down, or let it collapse under its own rot. He chose silence. Not because he was afraid, because it was no longer his war. He had new things to build now. Connections, identity, truth, and maybe, eventually, love again. But not the same way. Never again the same way. That night, Tony stood by the window again, holding the compass keychain, thinking of Claire, and for the first time in what felt like years, he smiled. Tony stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the lapel of his dark blazer. The reflection staring back at him looked different, not just cleaner or better dressed, but older, wiser, hardened. It had been 6 months. 6 months since the anonymous text detonated like a grenade in Vanessa's carefully curated world. 6 months since the truth came pouring out like oil on fire, since the mask had finally slipped. The truth had scorched everything in its path. Her marriage, her friendships, her career. And Tony, he didn't walk away unscathed, but he walked away. The scandal had imploded within days. The fallout was as chaotic as it was fascinating. Vanessa's husband had confronted her in a scene that, according to Tony's wife, bordered on cinematic. Shouting, tears, denials, then more tears. Vanessa had tried to lie her way out of it at first, but the proof, screenshots, timestamps, photos, had been airtight. When pressed, she blamed the wine, the loneliness, the pressure of motherhood, anything but herself. Her husband filed for divorce 3 weeks later, fast-tracked it, took the kids and moved out of state. Apparently, his family was better suited to support him and the children through the mess. Vanessa's lawyer fought for joint custody, but the photos had done too much damage. The judge awarded her only supervised visitation. Then there was her job. Tony wasn't even sure how HR got involved. Maybe one of the girls leaked something. Maybe the husband reached out. Either way, Vanessa's boss, the married man, resigned before she did. The company launched a quiet internal investigation, and while neither party was formally fired, both walked away without fanfare. She lost her job, he lost his family, and the whispers followed them everywhere. Tony hadn't spoken to her since. He had no interest. Whatever sympathy might have stirred in him during those first few weeks had curdled quickly. She wasn't remorseful, not really. She was just angry the ride was over. Still, she hadn't named names, not publicly, not to her ex-husband, not even to the friends who iced her out after the wine-fueled confession. It was almost noble in the most twisted, backhanded way possible. Tony knew why. She didn't want her perfect, pretty image to take another hit. She didn't want people knowing just how much of her dirty laundry was aired, or by whom. And maybe, deep down, she still thought there was a chance at redemption, at rejoining the group, at pretending none of it had ever happened. He pulled the door open and stepped outside. The crisp autumn air bit against his cheeks, but he welcomed the sting. It kept him sharp. Tonight was the charity gala. Same one they went to every year. Black tie, overpriced champagne, self-congratulatory speeches. But this time, Tony wasn't attending out of obligation. This time he was showing up on his own terms. Please like and subscribe for not cheating. His wife had opted to skip it. No drama, just a quiet decision. She said she didn't want to see that woman again, even if Vanessa wouldn't dare show her face. Not yet, maybe not ever. Tony respected that. He didn't ask questions. Their relationship had taken a hit, no doubt, but they were in therapy, actively working, rebuilding something real, something honest. Still, he felt a strange pull toward the gala, like something unfinished needed closure. He stepped into the venue's warm lighting, past crystal chandeliers and waiters in penguin suits. The buzz of conversation swelled around him. Laughter, flirtation, the clinking of glasses, the kind of crowd where reputation mattered more than truth. And then he saw her, across the room, standing alone near a floral arrangement too large for taste. Vanessa. She looked like a ghost. Not because she was pale or broken. No, she was still undeniably beautiful, but it was the hollowness in her expression. The mask she wore was slipping again, the eyes behind it scanning the crowd for approval, forgiveness, maybe even a lifeline. She hadn't seen him yet. Tony moved through the crowd slowly, deliberately. Each step carried the weight of 1,000 moments, betrayal, temptation, guilt, and the thunderclap of justice. He wasn't sure what he'd say, or if he'd say anything at all. But when he finally stood in front of her, something shifted. Vanessa blinked, her breath caught. Tony. Her voice was softer than he remembered, vulnerable. He nodded once. Vanessa. She looked down at her drink, then back up. I wasn't sure you'd be here. I could say the same to you. A pause. She bit her lip. You know, you never returned my messages. Not even after everything happened. There was nothing left to say. I needed someone, she whispered. After all of it, I didn't think you'd just disappear. Tony tilted his head. You needed someone? Or you needed someone to still see you the way you want to be seen? Her eyes flashed, just briefly, but then the vulnerability returned. You think I got what I deserved, she said. I think everyone deserves consequences for their choices, he said evenly. Especially when they lie to everyone around them. I wasn't lying to you. You were lying to everyone, Tony said, his tone sharper now. And that includes me. Her jaw clenched. You think this was easy for me? That I just, enjoyed destroying my life? I think you enjoyed the power, he said. And when it collapsed, you started looking for someone to blame. Vanessa looked away, her eyes glistened. I loved him, she said suddenly. Tony blinked. Your boss? She nodded. It wasn't just sex, it never was. I thought maybe, eventually, he'd leave her, that we'd. You knew he wouldn't, Tony cut in. You're not stupid, Vanessa. You just wanted to be the exception. The silence between them stretched, dense with unspoken truths. I didn't tell anyone it was you, she said quietly. The tip. I know it was. Tony didn't answer. He didn't need to. I could have told my husband, told everyone, but I didn't. Why? She met his gaze, a flicker of pain behind her bravado. Because I didn't want to lose everything, and I thought, maybe you'd still forgive me. Tony stepped back, his voice calm but resolute. You don't want forgiveness. You want someone to make you feel like you didn't make a mess of everything. She swallowed. And what about you? You never made a mistake? I have, he said. Plenty, but I own them, and I don't pretend they didn't hurt people. They stood there in silence. Two ghosts circling the wreckage of a friendship, of a past that had burned itself clean. Then, just as he turned to walk away, Vanessa spoke again. There's something else, she said, her voice trembling. Something I haven't told anyone, not even him. Tony paused, his back still to her. What? I'm pregnant. The words hit like a wrecking ball. Tony turned slowly. Vanessa looked like she might collapse under the weight of it. I don't know if it's his or my ex's, she continued, breath shaking, but I haven't told either. I've been scared, alone. He stared at her, the chaos of the last year spinning behind his eyes like a storm. It would be so easy to walk away again, to shake his head and vanish. But instead, he said the only thing he could. Then I hope, for that child's sake, you start being honest, with yourself, with everyone. And then he walked away. The air in the parking lot felt heavy, like something sacred had been shattered. Vanessa stood frozen, the sound of Tony's shoes fading into the dusk, each footstep dragging guilt behind it like a chain. She wanted to scream. She wanted to chase him and demand that he take it back. tell her that what he said wasn't fair, that he didn't understand. But deep down, she knew he did. He saw her for what she was, a coward. She climbed into her car and slammed the door shut harder than she needed to. The silence inside was deafening. Her hands trembled as they gripped the steering wheel. Her mind played a reel of every secret she had kept, every lie, every excuse, every whispered promise that she knew she would never keep. The drive home felt endless. Her heart thumped with dread, her breath shallow. When she pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on. Chris was inside, probably watching one of his crime shows, waiting for her like any other evening. Like nothing had changed, but everything had. Inside the house, she walked in slowly, as if stepping into a crime scene. The quiet was too loud. She half expected Chris to look up and know, to have the truth etched across her face like a confession. But he just glanced up from the couch, remote in hand. "Hey babe," he said with a warm smile. "How was dinner?" "Dinner." Vanessa's throat constricted. "Fine," she said, slipping off her shoes and forcing a smile. "Did you eat enough? I can heat something up if you're still hungry." She shook her head. "I'm okay, just tired." Chris got up and walked over, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "You've been looking a little pale lately. You should get more rest." The concern in his voice made her stomach turn. She was so used to his kindness, his stability, his blind, generous love, and she had betrayed every inch of it. A sleepless night. That night, Vanessa lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Chris was already asleep, his soft snore filling the room. She envied him. Envied how simple his heart was, how trusting. Her fingers moved unconsciously to her stomach. It was still flat, unchanged, but the knowledge of what was growing inside her weighed more than the child itself. Was it Tony's or Chris's? She couldn't even say with certainty, and the truth was, she hadn't been careful enough to know. Her cycle had blurred. Her body had become a battleground between desire and shame, and she hadn't kept track like she should have. There were nights with Tony, hurried and desperate. There were nights with Chris, mechanical and routine. And now, there was a consequence. "Then I hope for that child's sake, you start being honest." Tony's voice echoed again. Was he right? Did she owe this child more than she had ever given anyone? She got up and padded barefoot to the guest room, the one she sometimes used when Chris snored too loud. It had become her sanctuary, her thinking place. She pulled out her journal, pages of messy writing and tear-stained thoughts. She turned to a fresh page and wrote, "I don't know how to be honest, when the truth will burn everything down." Then she closed the book, leaned back against the wall, and let the tears finally come. The friends chat, cracks in the circle. The next morning, Vanessa woke to a group chat notification. "Girls' night out. Jess, about dinner last night, ... Vanessa, are you okay? You seemed off when you left." Melissa, "Girl, spill. Something happened. We're not dumb." Vanessa stared at the screen, hesitating. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to scream, "You all judged me. You made a secret chat behind my back. You were disgusted by me." But instead, she typed, "I'm fine. Just tired lately. Hormones maybe, lol." It was the safest half-truth she could offer. She muted the chat and tossed her phone aside. She didn't want their sympathy. She didn't want their gossip. She wanted silence. Tony's world, the fallout on his end. Across town, Tony sat in his car outside his old therapist's office. He hadn't been here in years. But after walking away from Vanessa, something had stirred in him. A need to talk, to unload, to seek clarity. The session had been grueling. He talked about his wife, about her betrayal, about how her affair had wrecked his belief in love. And then he talked about this affair with Vanessa, how it began, how it escalated, how it now left him with shame and confusion. "I wanted it to mean something," he said, voice cracking. "I thought I was different, that we had some deeper bond." His therapist nodded gently. "And now? Now I feel like I was part of the same pattern I hated. I was someone's escape, and I don't know if she ever really saw me. Or just the freedom I represented." He ran a hand through his hair. "She's pregnant, and it might be mine. And instead of joy, I just feel trapped." The words echoed between them. Truth at last. A letter left unsent. Later that night, Tony sat in his apartment, laptop open. He began typing a letter he had no intention of sending. Dear Chris, there are some truths that can ruin a man. This is one of them. I slept with your wife. For nearly a year. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did, repeatedly, passionately, shamefully. I don't tell you this to hurt you. I tell you because the lies are a disease, and you've been breathing poisoned air for too long. You deserve the chance to see clearly. There's a baby. It might be mine. It might be yours. I don't know. But if it is mine, I won't run. And if it's yours, I pray you never learn about this letter. Tony. He stared at it, his chest heavy. Then he deleted it. Please like and subscribe. The pregnancy confirmed. 2 days later, Vanessa sat on the edge of the exam table, cold paper crinkling beneath her. The ultrasound screen flickered to life. There's your baby, the nurse said gently. Vanessa stared at the grainy image. Her baby. The heartbeat echoed in the room. Fast, steady, alive. Something inside her broke and healed at the same time. Tears fell. For the lies. For the moments she couldn't take back. For the tiny life that had no part in her sins, but would bear the weight of them regardless. She left the clinic holding the first image of her child. A picture of truth in a life full of lies. The decision. That night, Vanessa packed a small overnight bag. She didn't know where she was going. Not yet. She left a note on the kitchen table. Chris, I can't keep living like this. I need time to figure out who I am. What I want. I'm pregnant. I don't know how to explain everything yet, but I will. Soon. Please don't come looking. Not yet, Vanessa. She slipped out into the night, the ultrasound picture clutched in her hand. For the first time, she wasn't running to anyone. She was walking toward herself. 1 week later, the motel room was dimly lit, tucked behind a gas station on the outskirts of town. A ceiling fan spun lazily above Vanessa, doing little to cool the sticky late summer heat. She lay on the bed in a worn cotton t-shirt, the ultrasound image propped against the lamp beside her like a holy relic. It had been a week since she left. No contact with Chris, no contact with Tony. She hadn't turned on her phone, hadn't checked the group chats. She had let the world go quiet, finally. Yet the silence wasn't peace. It was loud with guilt, with fear, with questions. She hadn't run away forever. She just didn't know how to go back. Meanwhile, Chris sat at the kitchen table in the same chair he'd always used. Her note still sat in front of him, unfolded, crumpled at the corners. He had read it so many times, it had burned into his mind. I can't keep living like this. I'm pregnant. I need time. But no, I love you. No promise of return. No explanation. Just an absence that now filled the house like a ghost. At first, he thought it was about stress. That maybe she was overwhelmed by the idea of motherhood. But the more he sat with the silence, the more a shadow grew in his gut. He thought about the late nights, the unexplained weekends, the way her laughter had dimmed over the past year, the way she had started looking at him, not like a husband, but like a stranger occupying her space. He stared at the note and whispered aloud, "What aren't you telling me, Vanessa?" He picked up his phone. Then he made a decision. Tony's conscience. Tony had gone back to work. Sort of. He showed up to the office, but barely existed in it. He was quiet in meetings, sharp only when necessary, otherwise hollow. Colleagues noticed. They didn't ask. He hadn't heard from Vanessa since that night. He didn't know if she was okay, if the baby was okay, if she had told Chris anything. He hadn't slept properly. He drank too much. The guilt was a pulse under his skin. What made it worse was how much he still wanted her, despite everything. Then, one morning, as he poured stale coffee into a chipped mug, he heard a knock at his door. He opened it slowly, and there stood Chris. The confrontation. They stood in silence for a beat. Tony felt the weight in the air instantly. Chris's eyes weren't kind anymore. They were sharp, tired, rimmed red. "Can I come in?" Chris asked. Tony nodded, stepping aside. Once inside, Chris didn't sit. He stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, gaze locked. "I'm only going to ask this once," Chris said. "Is the baby yours?" The words landed like a bullet. Tony's jaw tightened. "I don't know." Chris stared. "But it could be." "Yes." A long silence followed. Chris didn't blink, didn't speak. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," Tony added quietly. "We never wanted to hurt you." Chris gave a hollow laugh. "You mean you didn't want to get caught?" Tony nodded. "Fair enough." "You were my friend. I still am, Chris. Don't," Chris snapped. "You slept with my wife for months. You lied to me. You lied to her. You killed something that was good and decent between us." Tony didn't argue. He couldn't. Chris's hands trembled slightly, then stilled. "She's gone. Disappeared. She left a note, and then nothing. And I'm standing here, looking at the one person who might know where she is." Tony looked genuinely surprised. "I haven't spoken to her. Not since that night." Chris's eyes narrowed. "Then we both lost her." And just like that, Chris turned and walked out the door. Tony didn't stop him this time. Vanessa's turning point. Vanessa sat in the motel room watching late-night reruns when the nausea hit again. It wasn't just morning sickness anymore. It was stress, anxiety, the pressure of too many lies sitting heavy inside her. She grabbed her journal again and wrote something different this time. "I have to go back." The words terrified her. She had run out of time to hide. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't just about Chris or Tony. It was about the life growing inside her, a life that deserved better than secrets. She packed her things, paid cash at the front desk, and got into her car before the sun had even risen. She drove home. The return. Chris was home. When Vanessa stepped through the door, he was standing in the living room, staring out the window, hands in his pockets. He didn't turn right away, but when he did, their eyes locked, and she saw everything in his face. The betrayal, the pain, the confusion. "I didn't think you'd come back," he said. "I almost didn't." He nodded slowly. "You left me with nothing." "I know," she whispered. He gestured toward the couch. "Sit, talk." She obeyed, setting her bag down. She clasped her hands tightly, afraid they'd shake. "I'm sorry," she began. "For what? You need to be specific." Her throat closed. "For the affair, for lying, for everything." Chris sat across from her, but not close. "How long?" 10 months, a beat. "And the baby?" "I don't know." He swallowed, hard. "Is it his?" "It could be." Chris leaned back and stared at the ceiling, like he was trying not to break. "I didn't come here to lie anymore," she said. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to be honest." "Why now?" "Because I'm scared, because I don't want to be that person anymore, because our child deserves the truth, even if that truth is ugly." Chris looked at her, really looked. "Do you still love him?" "I don't know what I feel," she admitted. "I think I confused escape with love. I thought he saw me. But now, I don't know who I am anymore." Chris nodded. "I loved you enough to never question you. That's on me." "No," she said quickly. "That's not your fault. You were good to me. Too good." They sat in silence for a long while. Then Chris asked, softly, "Do you want this marriage to work?" Vanessa looked up, eyes full of tears. "I want to try." Chris nodded, slowly, painfully. "Then we try. But there are rules. Total honesty, counseling, a paternity test when you're ready." She nodded, tears falling. "And if it's not mine," he added, "I'll need time to decide what that means." She understood, but for now, it was something. A final meeting. 1 week later, Vanessa met Tony in a quiet park. It was early evening. Golden light filtered through the trees. She brought the ultrasound image. He brought coffee. They sat on a bench, 6 inches of history between them. "I'm going back," she told him, "to my husband. To try." Tony nodded, expression unreadable. "I figured. I'm telling him everything. We're doing a test. Whatever happens, happens. He looked at the sonogram. I thought I wanted this. You, us. But maybe we were just broken people trying to feel something. She smiled sadly. Maybe, but it mattered, even if it can't be more. He nodded, tears unshed in his eyes. You'll be a good mom. I hope so. She stood. He stood too. No goodbye kiss, no lingering touch. Just a quiet end. And as she walked away, the sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows behind them. Epilogue. 6 months later. The baby was born on a cold, rainy night. A little girl with bright, curious eyes. They named her Hope. The paternity test revealed what they feared. She wasn't Chris's biologically. But by then, Chris had made his choice. He stayed. Not because it was easy, but because sometimes love is a decision more than a feeling. A quiet vow made after the storm has passed. Tony received a picture of the baby in the mail. No note, just her face, her tiny hands. A reminder of a story that would never fully fade, but had found its ending. And in a small nursery, on a quiet street, Vanessa rocked her daughter to sleep, whispering, "You are the truth I finally found." In the end, it wasn't just about infidelity. It was about how long someone could live in a lie without drowning in it. It was about the people who stood by, silently, and what that silence eventually cost them. Sabrina lost everything, not just because she cheated, but because she refused to take responsibility. She lied to Tony, to her friends, and most devastatingly, to herself. And by the time the truth finally caught up with her, it wasn't just Tony who walked away. It was her entire support system. Her friends distanced themselves. Her lover disappeared into self-preservation. And what she was left with was a silence louder than any confrontation could have been. Tony may not have been the sharpest man in every conversation, but he was the only one brave enough to walk away when the love turned rotten. He chose dignity over delusion, and in doing so, he reclaimed his self-worth, something Sabrina had quietly eroded over the years. Vanessa learned the hard way that silence might spare a confrontation, but it rarely protects the right people. She thought she was helping by staying out of it, but watching her best friend unravel, and watching Eric shoulder the burden of the truth alone, showed her that looking away is sometimes just another form of complicity. And Eric? He realized that doing the right thing rarely feels heroic in the moment. It often feels messy, thankless, and painful. But that doesn't make it wrong. By choosing truth, even anonymously, he allowed a man who was being lied to daily the chance to reclaim his own story. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't malice. It was clarity. Sometimes the loudest hero is the one who says nothing to your face and leaves the truth behind for you to find. Sometimes that's all it takes. Watch Exposed and Broken to help me rebuild my life, maybe even buy a house one day.
Please like and subscribe to support me. I've been deeply affected by infidelity, and your support means the world to me. Watch Exposed and Broken to help me rebuild my life, maybe even buy a house one day. Thank you, and see you soon.